Another early morning test drive, this time in the good old 6.0 L96. I like the 6-liter motors. They're really good. Expedition engines, iron block, very durable, inexpensive, run on regular gas, and it matches this Jeep perfectly. The owner of this Jeep lives in Hamburg, Germany, and he stores the Jeep in the US, and he drives it all around the West Coast. This Jeep is heavy. It's got a camper on the roof. He had it all accessorized out. Main thing we noticed in the shop was the wheels and tires. He has Hutchinson beadlocks on this. Those are the type of rims that split in the center with an O-ring. And he had some very aggressive 37-inch tires. I think they were 13.5 inches wide. These tires were meant really for off-road and not for on-road use. These tires created so much drag, even with the body off in the shop. My guys had a hard time pushing the chassis around because the treads were like bubble gum. So when we got this on the road, he was seeing mileage numbers in the 9 to 11 mile per gallon range. Even at 65 miles an hour going easy on it, he was getting about 10 miles to the gallon. The goal was, what can we do to improve that? Well, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He had 7 LED bars and a high lift jack in the front of the vehicle, which was creating a lot of aerodynamic drag, and still is. He's removed a couple of these lights, believe it or not. So recently he took off the bubblegum tires and he put on some less aggressive tires. Now these tires are still heavy, and you got to remember that a tire and a rim, especially these Hutchinsons, can get near 800 pounds for the set. So every time you accelerate or decelerate, you have to accelerate and brake 800 pounds of wheels and tires and all that inertia. By going to the lighter tires, it completely changed the drivability of this vehicle. Not only does it feel like it has more power, but the mileage jumped up 3-4 miles per gallon. The engine feels more zippy. The vehicle feels lighter just by changing those tires out. Now the original tires he had in here worked great. He was actually running streams with water. Those tires had a tremendous amount of traction and would get him where he wanted to go. But once he got those things in the highway, it was like gluing him to the asphalt. Let's talk about expectations in an engine swap. A lot of guys think that they're gonna put a big V8 in their 7,000 pound JK, put 40-inch tires on it and get 22 miles to the gallon because they've got a V8 now, and that's just not the reality of it. What a V8 will do for you, and as it's doing for me right now, I do have this close to 7,000 pound Jeep, and I am getting onto this freeway like sailing a ship. It's just effortless. But we got to keep our expectations realistic. If you're going to put a lot of drag and load on your JK, that engine's going to have to fight it. So 9 to 11 miles to the gallon was really not that unrealistic. Now that we've cleaned it up a little and got some less sticky tires on it, he's up into the low teens, maybe the mid-teens, which is very respectable in my opinion, especially considering you can run regular gas. When you do your build, take all these things into consideration. The choice of your engine, the engine gearing, the fuel you intend to use. So when you decide to do your V8 conversion, look at what your intended purpose is going to be. If you're going to be running in mud down south, if you're going to be running in snow up in the northeast, if you're going to be running in the desert in the southwest, make decisions appropriately. I can say after doing hundreds of swaps, if you take a JK, put a V8 in it, you choose the right engine, you're probably going to get slightly better economy than you were going to get with a V6. And that's because the efficiencies the larger displacement engine has moving heavy weight. The 3.8 engine especially was pretty low on torque and horsepower, so it had to work really hard to move a heavy JK. The 3.6 has more horsepower, but it's still down on torque. Going to a 6-liter like this, it doesn't even break a sweat hauling this heavy JK. So these 6-liters do a great job hauling our JKs, however the tune is not optimal. You can see that the 6-liter I'm in is having no issue pulling this heavy JK up this parkway. This 6-liter in a truck like you see here ahead of me, these trucks are designed to haul weight, and GM knows that. So these trucks are going to be under a heavy load under a long period of time. The tunes and the calibrations are set up very conservatively. The spark timing is conservative. We don't want engine knock. We know that these customers want to drive on regular gasoline, so we've got to go very conservative on the octane scalers. The 6-liter is really designed to take a heavy vehicle like this JK get it down the road as economically as possible and as reliable as possible. These engines with the iron block can run 300,000 miles. Again, they run on regular gas, and they have enough torque to move a heavy vehicle. So let's get back to this build. This is a 2013 Rubicon. A couple of changes the customer made. He wanted to be able to engage his lockers independently of the operating system. On a stock Rubicon, you have to engage the lockers while in four-wheel drive low under about 15 miles an hour. You have to engage the rear axle first, then the front axle after the rear. You have to disengage the front axle first, then disengage the rear. Well, a lot of guys don't like to do that. They want front dig. They want the front axle locked without the rear, or they want the rear locked in two-wheel drive high. Another thing most of my customers want to do is limit ESP. That's electronic stability program. ESP can be very invasive, especially on modified vehicles with larger tires. Chrysler came out with what they call the steering wheel dance, or the ESP bypass, way back in 2008, 2009, recognizing that modified JKs had issues with ESP the way they were delivered from the factory. This Jeep does have dual batteries, and since its primary use is to be used off-road, he's set it up accordingly. He's got these heavy Hutchinson wheels on here with some Mickey Thompson tires that he can air down, especially when he gets into the rocks. He's got a full roll cage in here. He's got custom seats in the back with handlebars and nets, all the typical off-road stuff. This Jeep is really not meant to be a people hauler as much as it is meant to be used off-road and have fun with. I personally think the 6.0 matches this Jeep perfectly. He could have went with a 6.2. He would have had to use premium gas. He would have had more horsepower, but he wouldn't have had any more reliability. He's got plenty of torque right now, so I think that the 6.0 made a better choice. He could have gone with a 5.3. It would have been fine off-road, but on-road with these larger tires and heavy rims and camper on the roof and all the weight that he has, the 5.3 would not have hauled it as efficiently as this 6.0. Performance enrichment is a part of the calibration or tune that richens the motor up when it's under a heavy load. When you're in open loop, the fuel delivered is not stoichiometric. It's richer than stoichiometric in general. There was something called lean cruise years ago, which would actually go open loop and lean the motor out for better mileage, but that's been banned in North America. So performance enrichment on an engine like this means you put it under a heavy load. You're going to Moab, you're going up the I-70, you got your foot in it, you're going 75, 80 miles an hour hauling a 7,000 pound JK that has the aerodynamics of a brick up a hill at 8,000 feet. What's going to happen is the operating system is going to say, okay, we can't efficiently run this load in closed loop at stoichiometric. So it's going to go open loop. It's going to ignore the oxygen sensors, and it's going to put more fuel into the vehicle. It's called performance enrichment. When you go into performance enrichment, your air-fuel ratio drops from about 14:1 to 11:12:1. What this does is it not only gives the engine more power, but it protects the engine. It makes the combustion chambers run cooler so that you're not running lean. The flip side is you're not getting the economy that you'd be getting if you were in stoichiometric. As soon as that load goes away, of course, you're going to go back into closed loop operation and you're going to get your economy back. So compared to the old days when we were running carburetors and early fuel injection, digital fuel injection, these modern operating systems are a marvel. Even these Gen 4s. These Gen 4 operating systems, while not up to the Gen 5s, are a huge step forward from the Gen 3s. In comparison, if you take a Gen 3 PCM, that's a powertrain control module, that includes the transmission and engine controller in one module. They were running about 200-300 kilobytes of calibration data. A Gen 4 ECM alone can run close to 2 megabytes of calibration data, and that doesn't include the transmission module. So it's time to hit this mountain. We're going to drive this JK to the top of that mountain right there, and we'll see you later.